Hello friends, my name is Jermaine Cameron and this is my story. In my mind, when people see me, I think they immediately see success, someone who's accomplished, someone who is well off, someone who is seemingly secure. But what people don't often see is the Jermaine that's hidden, the Jermaine that is often masked, and that's the insecure Jermaine. My memory takes me back to growing up in Kingston, Jamaica, in a very impoverished neighborhood, in a neighborhood that had very, very few resources. And I think my only saving grace was when my parents told me at age 11 that my family and I would be moving to America. I view it as an opportunity to reinvent myself so that people can view me differently. But what's important to note was that even though I left my homeland and was in a new country, what lingered were these deep-rooted sense of insecurity that plagued my life. This sense of insecurity of never belonging, even though I was in a big family, never fitting in, even though I was very active in the church, never bright enough, never smart enough, never thinking that I would ever amount to anything. It took me some time to really do some soul searching and came to the conclusion of accepting who I am, but accepting also the past things that helped to make Jermaine who he is. One of the things that I've seldomly talked about was my anger that I had toward church. This anger that I felt was often masked. This anger that I felt could never go away. And it took me some years to realize that the anger that I had toward church and towards its people was deep-rooted in an experience that I had when I was about 10 years old. An experience that completely destroyed the trust that I would later have in any man or woman of God. See, what a lot of people don't know is that Jermaine Cameron, this seemingly successful, this seemingly accomplished young man, Jermaine Cameron, was molested at the age of 10 by someone, a pastor, who pledged to my parents that they would protect me. And for years, that incident has plagued my entire life. It has even permeated into my professional space. It has permeated into my spiritual space. And it has permeated in my ability to have long-term and sustainable relationships as an adult. I remember 11 and a half years ago, I woke up in downstate hospital, string to a bed, with cords attached to just about every angle. Because I wanted to end my life. I wanted to end this mask of a life that people saw. What people could never look beyond was this level of success, this level of deep-rooted accomplishment that masked those years of insecurity because of that one incident. But after I came through that ordeal of trying to take my life, not once, but twice, I remember I was a sophomore in college. And I remember his name very vividly, this one professor of sociology who met me on a bridge that connected the two campuses. And that gentleman took me under his wings as a mentee and nurtured me not only academically, but spiritually. And I remember very clearly he and his wife who prayed for me and spoke life back into me. And one of the scriptures that they reminded me of that still resonates with me today is that scripture in Romans 8:37. That in spite of all the things that we encounter, I'm paraphrasing, that you will be more than a conqueror through him, most importantly, that loved you. And for years, that scripture never meant anything to me because I never understood how could a God that demonstrates love allow someone who preached about his love to violate the innocence of a young child. It took me years, it took me relationship after relationship to really come to the acknowledgement that all of those things helped Jermaine Cameron to be who he is today. See, these are stories that aren't often told from the pulpit or aren't often shared among friends because of the level of embarrassment that it may bring. But I soon realized that the more I share my story, the more I am transparent with those who look up to me, the sooner I realize that my story could help elevate and could help lift someone from the mire that they are seemingly in. There is a word in one of my absolute favorite scripture, 1 Peter 2:9, and it's the word chosen. And it was not until it was my 25th birthday that I realized that irrespective of what happened to me at age 10, irrespective of what happened to me 3 years ago with a very public and embarrassing divorce, irrespective of all those other things that happened in my life, the word that resonates with me then and the word that will still resonate with me today is the word chosen. Peter reminds us that we are a chosen generation. And that has caused me to remain firm in the relationship that I have with God today. That I no longer look for the affirmation from anyone around me. I no longer look for that trust factor in people around me, but I rely in the affirmation that I, Jermaine Cameron, have been chosen by God. With all my faults, with all my insecurities, with all my shortcomings, with all the potential that I have to fail Him, I have grown to accept the fact that I have been chosen. So perhaps you who are watching this today have a story similar to mine, a story worse than mine, a story that perhaps you feel that is not worthwhile sharing because of the scrutiny and the judgment that will come after. But friends, let me remind you that the willingness to share your story can completely revolutionize and transform the life of just one person. I don't know what has perhaps caused you to walk away from a relationship with God. It could be guilt of the past, guilt of the present, or guilt of the future. But allow me to remind you through my story today, my story of insecurity, my story of abuse, my story of molestation, that the very God who was with you then is the God who will be with you today because you are indeed chosen. I'm Jermaine Cameron, and this is my story.